All right, I'm pleased to be joined by my next guest, Scott McCarron, who is a three-time winner on the PGA Tour, 11-time winner on the PGA Tour Champions, and we're right in the middle of the playoffs right now. Obviously, coming off a good start in Richmond. And Scott, what's going on today? How are you, man?
I'm doing fine, Garrett. Yeah, it's good to be with you. We have that Sacramento connection. Always good to check in, see how you're doing, and talk to you and maybe tell some few stories.
Definitely. We'll get into a few stories. Well, and I think about the Sacramento connection for you growing up. What was the driving force that got you into the game? Like what was the thing that really got you started?
A couple things. One, my dad was a professional baseball player. He played AAA for St. Louis Cardinals and Chicago Cubs. And when he stopped playing golf, or stopped playing baseball, he started playing a lot of golf. So when I was born in Sacramento in 1965, he started dragging me out to the driving range as soon as I could walk. Uh, and that's he really got me into golf. He loved golf. He played a lot of golf. Was a club champion at Silverado when I was a kid. He was a great athlete, great tennis player, great racquetball player. So he's the one that really kind of got me started into golf. And then again, I played all sports. I played football, baseball, basketball. But one thing I loved about golf, I didn't need anybody else. I didn't need nine guys to, eight other guys to play baseball or football or basketball. I could go out there and practice by myself, and I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing about golf, I think about those times in Sacramento. So, like, we're talking about all the city courses, right? You would have played what, Bing Maloney, Ansel Hoffman,
Ansel
some of those,
Hoffman.
right?
Oh yeah. Played a bunch of those golf courses. I played amateur events and junior events in high school, and a lot of tournaments on all those golf courses.
So, when was the last time? Now, here you are, 58 years old on the PGA Tour Champions, last 7, 8 years. But when's the last time you actually paid for a round of golf?
That's a great question. It was actually at Bing Maloney, where I think you worked.
Yeah, I
Uh,
worked as a starter. Yeah.
yeah, I actually took a couple buddies out there. I was playing. I just got on tour. Maybe I was like 2 or 3 years on tour, and took some buddies out there to play. And I paid for golf. It's a public golf course, and that's what you do. I always expect to play for golf, but most of the people around the country have been very very nice to me. But Bing Maloney, I think, was the last time I actually paid for golf, and it
Man.
was worth every penny of it, Garrett.
Yeah, it's an interesting course. Like it looks good in March and April when when the flowers are up and the grass is growing well. But you get there in the dead of summer, it gets pretty baked out, though. I got to be honest. That's my baby, but
Well,
I got to be honest with it.
it does. It gets a little. Well, all those golf courses, it gets pretty hot there in Sacramento in the summer. So
Definitely. Well, I was thinking you mentioned Silverado, and when I think about a player, a person who's been a big presence there in Silverado is Johnny Miller over the years. And I know you spent some time with him in Silverado, but what kind of comes to mind with stories with Johnny Miller there in Napa?
Well, Johnny was great. When I was growing up in Napa in 1976, Johnny was the man. I mean, he was the Desert Fox. He was winning all the time. So we used to get to play and practice a little bit with Johnny. Used to hang out with Johnny a little bit. Johnny was great. I remember I qualified for the U.S. Junior Amateur, which was in Fresno one year, and Johnny came down and spoke and kind of ponied me out of the crowd and brought me up on stage. And I thought that was pretty cool, to have Johnny Miller uh, trying to say hi to you and those type of things. But Johnny was great. But we had a good crew there. Jimmy Wickers, Rod Funseth, Ron Cerruto, Mark Lai for a little bit, but Jimmy Wickers, Ron Cerruto, and Rod Funseth, who all played the tour. And these are guys that used to come over from my parents' house for dinner. I played golf with them. I learned how to gamble with those guys. They would teach me how to hit bunk shots, how to hit punch out shots, all these different areas of golf that they spent a lot of time with me because I was a pretty good junior player. And I thought, that was where when I was a kid, watching those guys play the tour and then come home and tell the stories. That's when I thought, this is what I want to do for my living.
So, at what age would that have been roughly?
Yeah, that was, I was probably 11, 12, 13 years old when I was playing golf a lot with those guys. And especially when I was 14, 15, 16, a lot. Those guys, I had a chance to win the Northern California match play. I just won the Junior Golf Association match play a couple weeks before, and Jimmy Wickers came out and followed me in the last round, and he had won the U.S. Amateur as a kid. So those guys were integral parts of maturity and becoming a professional golfer.
What's as you talk about those amateur days there in Northern California, what's one of the more sentimental memories when you look back on, or that you'd almost want to relive now when you think about winning back then?
Well, we had a lot of great moments. I mean, I got to play on some of the teams, the North-South team matches, and I got to play in the Hogan Cup matches up in Portland. I just remember being up in Portland for the Hogan Cup matches, and we won it with some great golfers at the time. Mike Tingus, Tim Lost a lot, Mike Blewett, Steven Sear. I mean, these kids were all great players growing up, all went on to play in college. And we had gone up there right after Mount St. Helens had blew her top. So as the house we're staying at a little mobile trailer park out in the back of this guy's yard, and there was ash everywhere and ash all over the golf course. And I remember that was a pretty surreal experience going up there and winning those Hogan Cup matches.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot up north to deal with there. But it's interesting when I look where you're at now. You mentioned those 3 or 4 names of guys that were really instrumental for you. You got a chance now to pay it forward at age 58, living in North Carolina. I think you're in Mooresville, and you've got a lot of young players that you get to kind of spend time with. What is that like, kind of like coming full circle?
Well, it's been great, actually. We moved here about almost 7 years ago from Southern California, and we're right on a lake called Lake Norman in Mooresville, which is about 30 miles north of downtown Charlotte. We've got a lot of good golfers that are here, a lot of good young golfers that are here. So, I've been kind of mentoring some of these young guys a little bit I'm the older guy, but it's fun to hang around. It makes me feel young. I still feel like I'm 30 years old, even though I'm 58. But we've got Matt Ryan, great player. He's trying to make it. Pat Cover, Trace Crow, Danny Guys, Kyle Reifers lived right down the street, Eric Flores. So we got a good group of young guys that are all trying to play, and I'll have them out here to Trump National Charlotte, and we'll practice for a couple hours, go play, go in and have a couple of beers and tell some stories. And they're all interested about my stories and how I got there and the things that I'm doing and why was I successful, those type of things. But even for me, I'm learning, because I'm relearning when I'm talking to them or telling them things that I did. I might go, oh, maybe I haven't been doing that lately. And so it's been a lot of fun for me. It makes me feel young again. And I'm really rooting for those guys, because those guys, they're playing good. And it's fun to follow them on the Korn Ferry and Latin America and the Canadian Tour and Challenge Tour over in Europe. So I just remember starting out, playing the Hooters Tour, trying to play in Asia and all those things. And some of those times were some of the most fun times in my life, is all these guys, young guys with the same goal, trying to make it on the PGA Tour, driving around together, sleeping 3 or 4 in a room because you're trying to save money, getting private housing. When I look back on them, those were really fun memories. So I want to make sure those guys appreciate these times.
Well, it's interesting you bring up that point. Like, when you don't know for sure if you're going to make it or not, when you have that drive, you're like, hey, I'm giving my best shot, but there's nothing guaranteed. It's an unforgiving game. What is that thrill, or I should not say thrill, but just what is that drive like? How do you manage that?
Well, the drive, one of the things I try to instill in some of these young guys is the reason I feel like I made it, and the reason I feel like some guys make it and some guys don't. When I was going through it, there was an unwavering belief that this is what I was going to do for a living. No one's going to stop me. No one's going to tell me I couldn't do it. I was going to do it, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And, granted, there was a lot of bumps in the road along the way, but perseverance is one of the things, and one of my favorite words, that you've got to keep pushing forward. And some of these guys go, well, I'm just going to give myself 3 or 4 years to make it. No. This is what you want to do. You're going to give it as long as it takes. And so perseverance is huge, and you got to have an unwavering belief that this is what you're going to do for a living, that you're going to be a tour winner. And, again, it's not easy, man. And there's a lot more players out there, a lot more really good players out there than when I was coming out, and these kids can flat out play, and a lot of them, and they're ready to win on tour. I mean, all these guys that I'm playing with, all of them could play on the PGA Tour right now. They just got to get that opportunity. So again, unwavering belief.
Right. Well, and also too, learning from these guys, as you talk about learning from the younger guys, but there were a lot of older guys you learned from, and you mentioned a big brother character in the past, which was Peter Jacobsen. I mean, just a guy that took you under his wing. Give us a story or two about what he meant to your career early on, or even in the middle of the career.
Well, I still talk to Peter all the time, and we still stay. I've got some type of golf question or corporate question or TV type announcing question. I still talk to Peter all the time. Peter is like a big brother to me. He actually walked my wife down the aisle when we got married. So Peter's a big part of our life and has been for a long time. But he took me under his wing, when I first got on tour, and we started playing the AT&T together. And that's when Peter was playing with Jack Lemmon and I was playing with Huey Lewis. He invited me into that group. But to be able to play with Lemmon and Huey Lewis and Peter Jacobsen, I didn't care what I shot at the time. I just wanted to have fun with these guys, and the experiences were just incredible. And then when Jack passed, Peter took Huey, and I got to bring my buddy Chris O'Donnell out there. So the four of us played for 4 or 5 years together. So the stories that Peter would tell, everything was just so fun. And then Peter was running these events like the Fred Meyer Challenge, and he was helping run the Shark Shootout for Greg Norman. He was helping run the CBS Charity Classic for Billy Andrade and Brad Faxon. And Peter, had taught me so much about how to do a pro-am, how to do corporate outings, how to give speeches. And he was great because he invited me, and I got invited to all those years. I mean, I played like 11 Shark Shootouts and 7 Fred Meyer Challenges and 6 CBS Charity Classics, and those were kind of like the silly season or the off money things, but they were big. We got paid very well. They were a lot of fun. I made a lot of great connections, and it wouldn't have happened without Peter Jacobsen. So I owe a lot to Peter.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Shark Shootout. You won when you played for the first time in '97, right, with Bruce Litsky?
I did. Greg called me up to invite me to play, and he gave me a couple of choices of guys to play with: Chip Beck, Bruce Litsky, and I said I want to play with Leakey. I mean, he was one of my heroes growing up. I mean, the guy never practiced when I came out on tour, and he would show up and hit the same shot all the time, the big old cut. And I was kind of a cutter, and we both used the long putter at the time. I said I want to play with Leakey. And I didn't know Bruce that well, and we kind of introduced ourselves going up to the first tee, and I'm a little nervous, kind of a rookie playing the Shark Shoot the first time, and I said, Bruce, we're going to play alternate shot, and we're going to play scramble and best ball, and what should we do? What kind of a format? What are we going to do today? And he goes, I'll tell you what, kid, you just play your ball, I'll play my ball, and we'll be just fine. And he made it easy for me. He made it relaxing, and I went out and played. I played really well, and he played great too. And we won that Shark Shootout my first year playing in 1996. And then I was fortunate I ended up finishing second the next year with Bruce, and then Brad Faxon and I, who one of my best friends on the PGA Tour and in life, got to play, and we won 2 in a row. And then the third one we lost in a playoff. So Brad and I had some great times playing, and playing with Faxon was awesome. I'll never forget first time I played with Faxon, like the second hole's ultimate shot. I'm like, where do you want it? You want it below the hole, above the hole, left to right breaker? And he goes, just get it on the green. He goes, I don't care. And I'm over the shot going, oh, I just got to get it on the green. I kind of fatted it about a foot short, and he made the 50-footer. So I didn't even have to get it on the green with Fax. He was such a great putter.
Yeah, well, I love you brought up Brad Faxon, because you guys worked together in a lot of capacities, obviously on the tour, but you were working together at Fox when you were doing US Open stuff. What is this guy like for fans at home that don't get to spend a lot of time with him? What is he like inside the ropes, just as a buddy, like you said, one of your best friends?
He is a great storyteller. He's very, very funny. He's very inquisitive, always asking questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Very knowledgeable, because he's always asking questions. He's a student of the game. He's a student of announcing. He's a phenomenal announcer. We had great times announcing together and going to dinners and just talking and having fun. He's just a great guy, phenomenal putter. And one of the things that helped me out a lot when I was on tour is Fax and I would have short game contests or putting contests. I mean, if you're going to get good, you got to try to go up against the best.
Why not?
And so we would have contests all the time. Everything that we did was kind of competition, and that made me a lot better. And I'll never forget one time I walked on the putting green at Houston, and Faxon's standing in the middle of the putting green, and he's just whacking balls all around the putting green. I mean, like just whacking them here, whack here, turn around, whack there. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He goes, I'm practicing not caring, because if you can get up there and putt and not care if it goes in or not, you're going to make a better stroke than if you're really trying to make it and truly caring. So practice not caring. I thought that was really interesting. But he's great. He's a great follow on Instagram, on Twitter, and we still keep in touch all the time.
Yeah. Well, he's a good one, but also I think about you've been really good about seeking out advice from veterans, right? Whether that's Hale Irwin in the past or whether that's Peter Jacobsen. What was the conversation you had with Hale? Was it as a rookie, right? You were thinking this guy's the all-time winningest guy. Let me take him to dinner. Like, what would tell us that story?
Yeah. So, I only won 3 times on the PGA Tour. I felt like I should have won more. I lost a couple playoffs. But again, I was playing in the Tiger era, the Phil Mickelson era, and Vijay Singh era, where these guys were winning 5, 7, every year, and it was hard to win, to be honest. Hard to get yourself in position, and even harder to beat those guys when they were playing well. The Champions Tour, when I turned 50, I started getting myself in position, but wasn't taking it to the finish line, wasn't winning tournaments yet. So I called Hale, and I figured, he's won 45 times on the Champions Tour.
Yeah.
He knows a little bit about winning, and took him to dinner and had a really nice conversation. And one of the things he told me was, find out what type of player you are and be that player. Don't try to be someone that you're not. And the other one thing was, you just got to play average. You don't have to elevate your game. I always felt like playing in the Tiger era and Mickelson era, I had to play my absolute best to win a tournament. And those guys had to play just okay. He's like, no. And so I always had tried to hit a heroic shot at times, or tried to go for flags I didn't need to. And Hale's like, no, hit it in the fairway, hit it on the green. You're going to make some putts, get yourself in position, and just keep doing that. Just keep playing average. That's what you do best, is being average. You don't have to elevate your game to some other level, but you don't want to play worse. So just play average. Hit it in the fairway, hit it on the green, have an opportunity, give yourself opportunities, and you're going to win some. And then some guys are going to beat you at other times, and some guys are going to lose to you because they didn't handle it well. And I thought that helped me a lot when I got in position. I stopped trying to hit the heroic shot, and I started just hitting it in the middle of the green, playing to the safe side, hitting it from spot A to B, and got in position quite a bit of times, and was able to win 11 times so far on the Champions Tour. It's been a good run.
Yeah, so far it has. And another guy, speaking of the Champions Tour, PGA Tour champions, you had some advice you got after a pro-am when he had dinner with Jack Nicklaus there at his place about the PGA Tour champions, right? And the importance of playing on that. What was that conversation like?
That was great. Yeah, Jack and Barbara do a phenomenal pro-am at Lost Tree, their home course, and they do a dinner at their house after. I had just won the Allianz Classic at Broken Sound, where we're going next week.
Timberdeck,
so it's TimberTech now. So we were having dinner with Jack and Barbara, and I just won, and Jack took me aside and said, I just want you to know I have one regret. I said, okay, what was that? He says, I wish I would have played more on the Champions Tour, because once it's over, it's over. He goes, play as much as you can. Don't make the mistake I did. I thought that was interesting, coming from the greatest player that's ever lived, that he wishes, and he, realizes how important that was, the friendships and the times, because we're all golfers. We want to play, we want to compete. But once you hang it up, once it's over, man, it's over. It's hard to replace that with something else. So, I've tried to play just about as much as I can. I spent quite a few years, 3 or 4 years playing almost every event. I've taken a couple off here and there, 2 off this year, but I'm trying to play as much as I can, and I'm trying to have fun and enjoy it. I get to spend time with my buddies, Glenn Day and Brant Jobe and Ken Tanagawa and Jeff Sluman, and Billy Andrew. It's a great time out in the Champions Tour. We're all rooting for each other. When guys go have a chance to win, a lot of guys stick around to high five them and have a beer with them after. Well, that didn't really happen much on the PGA Tour, So we're all rooting for each other. There's enough money to go around. We've all known each other for 30 years, and it really is. It's like family.
Yeah, No, that's true. Just cheering for each other, as we saw in 2019. Remember all the guys that were with you there in November
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that big day at Phoenix Country Club, waiting it out with you. Let's get to that actually as we're in playoff season. So it's 2019. Paint the picture for us. You finish your round, final round. You end up tying for 27th, but it's an hour and a half before anything actually gets settled. So what'd you do? I know you went to the parking lot. It was very stressful, right? So like, how did you manage the stress? What was that all like?
Yeah, so it was stressful. The last couple, I played great all year long. I think I've won 3 or 4 times that year. And the week before, with about 9 holes to play, I kind of got in contention. I was in about 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th place. And all I got to do, if I play well the last 2 events, nobody's going to catch me. And I played poorly the last 9 holes because I started thinking about it. I mean, it started getting my mind, winning the Schwab Cup. A lot of guys that had won the Schwab Cup before, Langer and Lehman, were telling me how hard it is. And I'm like, this ain't hard. I mean, it's easy. I'm just playing. This is great. And then all of a sudden it got hard. I mean, really hard. I played terrible the last 9 holes. I think I shot 41 or two, went from like fourth or fifth to like 20th or whatever in LA. And then I came to Phoenix and I was not in a good frame of mind. I was hanging on. I was not playing freewheeling like I'd been all year. And so there were a couple guys that had chances to win the Schwab Cup if they won the tournament only. Retief Goosen and Bernhard Langer. If they had won the tournament, they could have won the Schwab Cup. And sure enough, those two guys played great that week. I'm like, oh, great. I just need them to play bad,
Right.
but that's not going to happen. So I finished early, thinking that, and Langer, I think he had a hole in one that day on like 8 and shot like 29 in the front or something. I mean, it was just crazy. Everything that could go wrong for me was going wrong. And so it was very stressful. And it came down to Retief Goosen had a putt in the last hole. And I had the exact same putt earlier in the round. And as he's lining up, I'm like, he's going to miss it left. I mean, this thing doesn't break right. And he did from about 3 feet. I mean, it wasn't that dumb of a putt, but it just was a weird putt. And when he did that, I'm like, okay, maybe I got a chance. And I needed Maggart to birdie the last hole to tie him. And Mags hit it left, kind of off the grandstands. And he had this really tough chip from about 35 yards over the bunker. And he had a great shot to about 2 feet to tie Goose to go into a playoff. They play 18. Now, at this point, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to lose the Schwab Cup. And I'd lost the Schwab Cup the year before on the last day when Vijay Singh won. I had a chance to win the tournament. If I win the tournament, I would have won the Schwab Cup. So I'm like, I'm going to be the only guy to lose the Schwab Cup with 9 holes to go 2 years in a row. And I really wanted to win it. So Maggart, again, got up and down on 18, the first hole. I went to the parking lot for a little bit because, the camera's on me. Everybody's, kind of saying, hey, it's going to be okay. And it was stressful. And I'm sitting in the parking lot. I'm thinking, you know what? I got to go back up there and take this like a man. I'm probably going to lose, but I'm going to have to congratulate Retief Goosen on winning the Schwab Cup. And, that's the way it goes. And so as I came back up, right then I heard this roar out on the 17th hole. And then the TV pan, they're about a 15-second delay. And then they're showing Jeff Maggart getting ready to hit. And I knew it. I'm like, oh my God, he holed it. And sure enough, on TV, he holed it. And everyone went just bonkers. And that was really cool experience to have all these guys, Miguel, Langer, Jerry Kelly. I mean, all these guys I look up to that are all my friends, Petrovic, all sitting around there having a glass of wine and hugging me and high five. And it was a party. I mean, it ended up being, I ended up staying the night at Jerry Kelly's and ended up being about a 12-hour, just big old bash party, which happens a lot when Jerry and I get together. So it was neat to see those guys rooting for you like that. And I got to tell you, Garrett, even last week, I haven't been in contention a long time. I have not played well over the last year and a half, 2 years after my surgery. And last week, I had a chance. I mean, I had a chance to win. I finished fourth, and it's been a struggle for me, to be honest, over the last 2 years. And when I got into the locker room in the player dining, most of the guys stay there anyways because nobody's going anywhere after that. Guys stayed me. They started clapping and cheering for me because they know how much it meant to me to kind of get in the contention again and to play well. And that's just the camaraderie and the family out on the Champions Tour. There's nothing like it. I mean, even when you have a guy that's been down for so long and he comes out and plays well, we're rooting for him. We want these guys to play well.
You mentioned Jerry Kelly, a good buddy of yours. He handed the phone to you during an interview with John Cook that had your dad saying congratulations there, Barry, your dad. How cool was that? How do you describe that?
It was really cool. You know, my dad was there and then left on Sunday morning.
Come on, Pops.
He was getting so nervous and I wasn't playing well, and he left. And I told him, I said, man, you shouldn't have left. We're having a good time down here. But it was special to have him there. He'd come down for the last couple Schwab Cups and would hang out with me and have a great time. And I miss him. He passed away about a year and a half ago. And I miss him every day because he's the guy that one of the guys I would talk to almost after every round. You know, he'd call me and we'd kind of go over the round. Him, another guy named Dr. Glenn Albaugh, who I also lost last year.
Your mentor, yeah.
Yeah, my mentor. I'm a sports psychologist and from University Pacific, and he was the golf coach and just a great guy. So those two guys I miss a lot, miss them every day. But it was nice having my dad there, and to win the Schwab Cup was really cool.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a celebration, a lot of fun celebration with the guys there celebrating the Charles Schwab Cup. I think about, hey, celebrating a claret jug. You used to go to Ireland with, you know, David Duval would be out there. You got Tiger Woods. You'd have Mark O'Meara. Sometimes John Cook, your guy there. And you guys drank out of the claret jug that one year. Must have been 02 when he was defending champ for Duval. So what were those stories like?
It was. That was my first time. Mark O'Meara, again, was like Peter Jacobsen and still is to me. I mean, Mark is also like my big brother and kind of took me under his wing as well and would invite me to Ireland with he and Tiger and David and John Cook. And so that was the first year. And it was my birthday, July 10th. We'd had a great dinner. We had played Royal Portmarnock. We're flying around in helicopters. I'm with the king god Tiger Woods. You know, it was just so cool and surreal. And then kind of winding down the evening, and I was having a couple drinks with the Tigers kind of security guards that they had for him that week. And all of a sudden in walks David Duval, just flown in, and he goes, "Hey, I'll be right back." And he came back with this case, you know, this huge case, and it was the claret jug. And so an evening that was going to end around 9 ended around 3. I think we drank, and Tiger came back and we drank everything out of it. And then we had to fly, and we went and played Mount Juliet the next day. And we were so hungover, Tiger wouldn't play us. We had golf carts, which they didn't have any golf carts there. They had to bring a couple in for us. So it was just so much fun fly fishing and golfing and working out and learning from Tiger and Mark and David. We had such great times back in those days. And you know, back then you don't realize, you know, they're going to end. I mean, how special they were to be able to do that. You just think, oh, this is normal. Well, it's not normal. It's not normal to hang out with Tiger Woods, fly around in helicopters and fly fish with Mark O'Meara and drink pints of Guinness. I mean, that was, you know, in Ireland, pretty cool.
Well, speaking of fishing, though, you mentioned that a second ago as part of this whole trip. Who were the best fishermen out of that group? I mean, like, between you guys.
Mark O'Meara is hands down the best fly fisherman. I have to admit, Tiger turned himself into a really good fly fisherman as well. He enjoyed it. He went up to Alaska a couple of times with Mark, and then Mark took me up to Alaska, John Cook and I, JP Hayes. But Tiger turned into a pretty good fly fisherman. But Mark is by far the best. He plays golf only to make enough money to buy more fly rods, I think. Phil Blackmore is also a great fly fisherman, but hands down, and Paul Azinger also is a good fly fisherman. But Mark O'Meara, I think, is the guy that loves it the most.
You also would have played a lot of golf with Tiger on tour in a lot of those rounds. And I'm curious, like, are there a couple shots that come to your mind? I know he used to hit some amazing shots back in that time, late 90s. But are there a couple shots that come to your mind that are like, wow, like I'll never forget that shot?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I did play quite a bit with Tiger. And one of the interesting rounds I played was at TPC Scottsdale, the Phoenix Open, the day after he made that hole-in-one. I was paired with him on Sunday. And it was funny because I was wearing a golf clothing company called with E. McGrath. It was the Byron Nelson collection. And one of their outfits, which I wore at the Masters a few times, was a shirt, tie and a button down, and a vest and the whole bit. And so E. McGrath, they wanted me to wear that day because I knew I was going to be on TV. I'm playing with Tiger Woods. I'm like, oh man, I don't really want to do that. And sure enough, I did, and I showed up in the first tee, and Tiger just laid into me nonstop all day long, calling me the waiter, go get me drinks. I mean, it was hilarious, which I deserved it. But watching him hit some shots, I remember on the second hole, he kind of hit it in the desert in the right. And I was standing about 15, 20 feet from him when he hit the shot out of the desert that hooked about 40 yards, that went sky high in the air and stopped dead on the green, these super hard greens. And I was like, how did he do that? And I was like, oh my God, I can't do that. And to be honest, the rest of the round, I stopped watching him, Garrett. I mean, I couldn't do what this guy was doing. And so I listened to the sound, but I stopped watching because it made me feel about this big watching him hit shots like that. And for the rest of the time, I didn't watch him hit a lot of shots because I didn't want to be deflated. Now, we played a lot of golf together, and I heard a lot of the shots, and I heard all the crowds, but I didn't want to watch it too much because I just couldn't do it. And it couldn't do what he did. And I got to play with him in Mount Juliet. We got to come back 5 months later after we had our great outing at Mount Juliet with the golf carts. And Tiger and I went head to head. We played in the final group together. And I think it was one of the only times, everyone there in Ireland, me being McCarran and Irish, they were kind of rooting for me. So it was kind of my hometown crowd rooting for me. And it was really cool and surreal. And Tiger went the whole week without a bogey till the last hole. A camera guy clicked a pick shot right on his backswing on 18. He pulled it in the bunker and made bogey. So when we got into center cards, it was just me and Tiger and the scorekeeper. I called him a choking rat because he couldn't go all week with making a bogey. But we go to celebrate. I'll never forget this. We go to celebrate after, and we're all in the bar. John Daly and a bunch of us, Chris DeMarco, and we're all drinking because we got to catch this flight. And Tiger walks by after doing media. I think I finished fourth. And everyone's like, come on, Tiger, come join us. And he goes, no, I'm going to work out. And literally everybody's jaws dropped. And we're like, how are we going to beat this guy? We can't beat this guy. He's just won a tournament, only won one bogey, and now he's going to work out. I mean, the guy was so impressive to watch, so impressive to learn from. And I can't wait another 2 years till he's going to come out and play with us. Can't wait.
Yeah. I was going to say, is there a lot of talk about that? A lot of excitement? Looking forward to that?
Yeah, he talked to Noda after Noda played his first event. He called him, what do you think? What do you think? He told me a couple years ago that he was going to come play. He's told a lot of guys that he would like to play. And one of the big factors, I think, the Champions Tour, they're always talking about the PGA Tour is trying to lower the Champions Tour age to 45 because that 45 to 50 is the no man's land. And it's just getting harder and harder. And so every year, the PGA Tour players on the board always want to try to lower that number to 45 so they can play for 5 years earlier, where we all had to wait till 50. And so they came to Tiger and they said, what do you think? What do you think of this idea, low to 45? And Tiger says, no, because all the records started at 50. So that right there, if he said that, then at least he's entertaining the idea of possibly playing. He wouldn't want it lowered because that would change all the records. So I hope he plays. We're playing around with some of our cart rolls right now that will hopefully entice him because I know he won't do ADA. He doesn't want to do that. And so we're trying to change the cart roll so player in the bag or the caddy in the bag can be on the cart. It might help Tiger a little bit because he's going to be able to play. It's just whether he can walk, full 18, 3 days in a row. And I hope he plays. We all want him to play. I think again, we're all golfers. We all played. Nicklaus played. Everybody played. Right. Except for Greg Norman's about the only one that didn't play because he had other things going on. He had all these businesses. And Greg didn't really want to put the time in to be the best like he did when he was on tour. But everyone else played. I mean, Trevino, Chi. I mean, so I hope Tiger plays because it would be great for our tour. It would be great for Tiger, and it would be great for Charlie to see Tiger, playing out there. And he's going to be playing against the same guys he played against all those years on the PGA Tour, and we're all his buddies, and we all love him. And we just like to have him come out and hang out and play some golf and tell some stories.
Why not? Why not? Well, speaking of your tour, I know you've got a couple really good finishes at Phoenix Country Club that's coming up in a couple weeks. What is it about that course? What's a good test about that course?
Well, you got to have a really good wedge game. Unfortunately, that golf course takes driver out of my hands a little bit. It's kind of a tight golf course. It's short. I can get to a lot of the par fives. That's where I have an advantage. I can get to a lot of par fives, and I can drive almost two of the par fours. But you've got to have a really good wedge game around there. You got to be able to work the ball left to right, right to left, and the greens are tough to hit because they're smaller. It's just a smaller type golf course. I have had some good finishes there. I would like to be at a bigger golf course. I want to be able to bomb it. I want this to be as long as possible. Since I'm like third on tour in distance and I tear up the par fives, I want it to be as long as possible. But having said that, I've played well there at Phoenix, and I'm hoping to get another chance this year. I'm 38th on our Schwab Cup. I got to move up 2 spots, top 36 go. So I got my work cut out for me this next week at the Timber Tech at Broken Sound.
Definitely. Hey, and in the last minute of the podcast here, I just want to describe for our listeners what it feels like to have the lead at Augusta. You had it in 1999 on Saturday. What does that feel like?
Yeah, I didn't have it very long, Garrett, but I did have it. I was playing 99 with Jose Maria in a final group on Saturday. I birdied 11 to take the lead at Augusta. Huge standing ovation, when I'm walking up to the 12th tee, hair standing up on my arms. But I was ready to go at that point. The problem was Greg Norman had hit it long over the green, and they were looking for his ball, and then he had to come back to the tee, and then he hit it an 8-iron that came up short in the bunker, and then he got it up and down for double, I think. So I stood on that tee for like 20 to 25 minutes with the lead, with the winds swirling, man. And I freaked out when I saw Greg hit 8-iron and short in the bunker. I felt I had to clobber an 8-iron to get it there, and I hit it over the green again. I had taken unplayable, come back to the tee, hit in the bunker, and made triple. So I went from leading to being devastated. And I wish that I would have handled it better. I certainly would have handled it better later in my career. Because at that point now I'm trying to make it up that triple real quick instead of just keep playing what I was doing and to give myself a chance. And I think I hit it in the water on 13 left. I ended up shooting 76 that day with a couple bogeys coming in. So I didn't handle this situation as well as I certainly would have later on in my years.
Story there about the Masters. Obviously, it's a lot of fans would love to know more about what that feels like, and it obviously was a big moment for you. Then lastly, Timber Tech coming up. I know it's a course, Broken Sound coming up. I mean, what is that challenge like as you get into a big part of the series here?
Well, it's a golf course that I enjoy. I loved it, but they went and changed it all. So this will be the first time that I've seen the new redo. But Broken Sound was a great golf course before. I'm sure it's going to be better now. So I'm looking forward to it. I got my playoff beard going. Started it last week. So it's not coming off until the playoffs are over. It's going to be very gray at some point, probably gray already. But I'm looking forward to Broken Sound. It's a great golf course. Boca's a lot of fun. I'm going to play a women's pro-am on Monday for them at 1 o'clock. I'll play my Tuesday at 10 group, Ken Tanagawa and Glenn Day. Brant Job's not there because he's on a medical, but he'll be back here, my college roommate.
Right.
And then I'll play 2 pro-ams Wednesday and Thursday, and then start the tournament Friday. So it's going to be a busy week, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and looking forward to having a good week.
Great stuff, Scott. Thanks again for the time, and we'll catch up down the road.
Thanks, Garrett.